Hey, Louise here, and I am ready to take you on a colorful adventure. I want to show you how to transform your fabric scraps and pieces and bits and everything that you have into a stunning, scrappy masterpiece. And we're going to use my favorite pro techniques for color. Color is what makes your quilt. It truly has such an effect. And I want to show you everything that I do, 5 basic steps. And first we start with a color scheme. And I always have a scheme of colors that I'm working with, a basic plan. And this was a particular fat quarter bundle that I use. And then I start pulling out everything I have and I think, will this work? Will that work? And I look for balance. I want lights. I want darks. I want colors that work and kind of blend in with it. There are some that do, but then there are some that don't quite make it, but that's okay. I find another pack of scraps that I have, and I go through that, and then I find some bundles that, oh yeah, here's some scrappy pieces, I can use that, that's going to work. And then we've got our plan put together, we've got some colors, but then we also need to get a bit creative. What can we do to really make this quilt square pop? Well, it wasn't about adding blue to my colors, but it was about adding less color. And I'm going to show you how that works. And it's all about how you put your colors together, how you build your block, and then you get creative with the final quilt assembly. We're going to do it all, and I'm going to show you step by step. Just wait until you see the quilt we're going to make today. Lots of fabric. That's the way I love to start every quilt. The more the merrier. I really enjoy lots of fabrics in my quilt. But I did have a plan, and this was the beginning of my plan right here. And this is called Tango. It's a Moda Fabric collection by Kate Spain. And I really like these colors. I like the corals, a bit of kind of a peachy coral, and then the greens, bit of gold. They just work really nice together. So I spent the afternoon going through my boxes. I have my boxes here with all kinds of scraps that I've been pulling out, and I found some things that are going to work. I found a bunch of golds that I think I like, some pinks that'll work out nice, and some peaches, but there's some peaches here, but there are some definite pinks. And then I found some greens that seem to work here. And some are darker, some are lighter. And so what I want to talk to you about in particular for putting our colors together is I'm making a scrappy quilt, so I want lots of fabric, lots of different pieces, lots of different colors. But I really want to be conscious of my color scheme, which is here. No blue, no purple. So these are the colors that I'm working with. And I can't just have them all darks or lights. I need to have a wide range of values in each of these colors. Like, see, look at this. Here's a particular color that's basically repeated in different values. It's dark, medium, and light. And so I have a bunch of these solids that I had a large stack of solid charm squares, and I found there's a bunch of them here that are going to work. That's a little iffy. We'll see if I need it or not. This one right there. But it can definitely work in there. Now, these are a couple I had pulled out as well, and I went, eek, when I put all this together. It's like, this is what I mean about your color scheme. You can have a ton of stuff in here, but don't have just one or two of something that is really off the charts. And, like there's a little blue in some of these, but overall there's no blue in this quilt. And while there's some coral here, we certainly don't have any orange or lemon yellow. So these guys are going to go back in the box. I haven't told you yet what we're making, have I? Oh my goodness, I have a plan. And it's going to be a 16 block quilt, 4x4 potato chip blocks. And it's going to be the small 2.5 by 4.5. But what we're going to do is create floating potato chip blocks. Now, what makes that so special is the low volume, the super light background fabrics that are don't have a lot of print at all, and these are going to work out beautifully. So each square will have, let's see, I think 16 blocks, which is the center and 2 rows, and then we're going to do a light row around each of them. And when the 2 blocks go together, they are going to be light against light. So we're going to have a wide strip around each of our blocks, which sort of makes them look like they're floating, which kind of puts it in more of a modern pattern or a modern layout. So I'm really excited about doing that. And that's part of your planning when you're laying out, when you have lots of fabrics and you want to kind of control and manage, especially when you're doing a scrappy quilt and you're doing a particular pattern. If you're just randomly piecing, you can get away with a lot. But if you're doing a specific pattern, it gives you an opportunity to place these pieces together. And we have some wonderful colors here. Okay, you know what? I just have to open this. I don't know if this is going to let me pull it open or not. Oh, look, yes. All right, we can do it. And we'll just kind of lay it out. You know, one thing I could do is do half my blocks in the greens and half in the corals and gold, and then alternate my blocks. That would be really fun. So when you're getting your fabrics together, if you're finding groups of particular colors, think about how you can maybe consolidate them or create, specific areas of that particular color throughout your quilt, or not, or just mix it all up randomly and just go completely scrappy and just, throw all your pieces in a bag and pull one at a time without even looking and just sew. So that's where we are. So I really want to focus on 5 specific tips about what we're quilting today and the way we're going to use our fabric. So you'll hear me mention that. We've already touched on that a little bit. Right now I'm going to go cut some fabric and see if I have enough pieces. I'm going to need about 500 of the small rectangles, 2.5 by 4.5. And so I can get quite a few out of here because this is 31 fat quarters, plus I've got these 3, plus I have some fat quarters here and here. So I have all kinds of things going on. I'm going to get this all cut, and then I'll be back and show you how we're going to group this together and what the plan looks like. Oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be so pretty. I love these colors. I hope you do too. I have to slip in this little fabric segue. I went to my local quilting store, the Country Quilt Barn. I'll put their link down below because she does sell fabric online. And she had this Anna Marie fat quarter collection, and they're all the echinacea, the cone flowers, in every color. And I thought, oh my goodness, this will be perfect. See how pretty these colors almost match? Well, I thought, okay, I'm going to cut them smaller and I'm going to try. And it's like, oh, they were too much. And there weren't enough other really bright, vibrant colors. And this would have just, this there, a little too much. So sometimes you have to take away, but these will get used. Besides, I have my own cone flowers that I'm enjoying every day. Let me show you those. Even though we may not be living back in our house yet, it hasn't stopped my garden from growing. Look at these gorgeous flowers. I love the lilies, but those cone flowers stand out. The fuchsia stargazers will be coming soon, but let me show you this one up close. Look at those gorgeous colors. Oh my goodness. There will be a beautiful place in a future quilt for these flowers. I promise you that. All right, let's get back on track. Here's step 1 of my plan, putting blocks together. And I decided to go with the green and the coral pink in separate blocks. I think that'll really be fun. So I have 16 total. I'll have 8 greens and 8 of the coral. But I'm keeping the center square the same. So instead of splitting this in half and making 2 strips in there, I'm using a single block. I like this print, and it really showcases both sides of the fabric, the greens as well as the corals over here. So this is really pretty, you know, and I wasn't sure what I thought about these golds, but gold was part of the collection, so I said I'm going to put it in, and I'm so glad I did. And I did add a few extra of my own. I had some batiks and other prints that I thought would really be fun. So this is where we're going. Then what we're going to do, let me see if I can get some of these. So I needed, like I said, about 500 pieces of these rectangles for this particular block. And then I'm going to need another 14 for the outer edges. So each one will have a white row of strips around it of rectangles. And then when they come together, we're going to get this really nice, what do I want to say? It's basically, I guess, a lattice or the other word. I can never think of the other word. Sashing, that's the one. But it's not going to look traditional in that way because it's going to be low volume. It's going to just sort of recede to the background so these dominant colors can stand out. But I jumped ahead. I do need to show you a way that I came up with to make these blocks. Because when you're dealing with a center plus 16 pieces, alternatively, this is an 18-piece block, but this is taking the place of 2. What I found works for me is I do all the seams in one direction. I'll lay my block out, and I have my nifty little turntable here, and I can set this close to my machine, and then I pick up the pieces as I go. So what I've done is I put these together so that all the seams going in this direction are going to be sewn at the same time. And that, whoops, get ahead of myself here. And then when I'm finished, I can put them back on my mat, open them up, and I just need to add this over here, and then I sew the seams this way. So let me go ahead and sew this part, and I'll show you what I mean. So here's my block again, and I'm simply going to start at the top by bringing each of these in alignment with the block next to it. So basically we're going to be doing chain piecing, and I'm going to pick my pieces up from the top. I'll sew here and here, 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 and here. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to cut them, I'll lay them back down, and then I'll finish sewing. So let me pull these together and I'll show you how that works. So to make it easy while I'm recording this is I just pulled them off my mat and I put them in order. This is top to bottom, and I will just go ahead and sew them right along here. And I'm being very careful to keep my 1/4 inch, whoops, I came a little too far forward, keep my 1/4 inch seam, because when you have a lot of pieces in a block like this, your seam allowance is going to be important in order to keep everything together. And I'm just going to continue going through, so let me sew these up. Whoops, I better do that one again. I missed that seam allowance. You know, when I find when I'm in a hurry to get to the end, I tend to veer off at an angle, thinking somehow I guess I'm going to finish faster. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm going to take each of these, cut them apart, and now let's put them back on the mat. Here's my mat, and I'm going to take my pieces and place them where they're going to be. And I just found that this was a very easy, methodical way to keep things where they go and be able to sew them. So we've got this here. Now I'm going to sew this one on, and this one on, and this one on. So these had 3 pieces, where these here and here only had 2. So I'm going to take these now and sew those. I lost you for a couple minutes while I was sewing, but I have the pieces that are joined with 3 bricks all sewn, and so I'm placing these in here. Now on that last round, when I sewed these 3, I also sewed these 2 together just to save a little time. So after I do all these pieces, then I just grab these 2, sew them, and then they're ready to go. Now the first thing I need to do is work from the center out. So I have this piece, I have this piece, and I have this piece. Now I want to press this before I go any further. And from here, I'm going to show you on the table, because I have some that are partially put together, and give you an idea of how all this comes together. And here's one of the sample ones I put partially together, just so I could show you. So I'm going to pull this out so you can see where the seams are and how this will work. So I have this together. This is where we start. We sewed these 2 pieces. Remember, we sewed all these laterally, and it just makes it a lot easier, I think. Then we came back and we sewed the other sides like this and this. And then the last step is to come back and sew these 2. Now, the first thing we do is we place these pieces here. And you notice I already have them pressed in the direction. You want all your seams pressed in the direction that you're sewing. The only change is in the center. We just want this out. And so your seams will be pressed the direction you're sewing. And then when you put your block together like this, everything is pressed to the outside. And that's just going to keep things nice and consistent as you're moving along. So then you're going to sew this, and you can see these are the next pieces. So let me go ahead and set this aside. We're just going to go through this step by step so you can see how these all go together. And whoops, here's this one. Now look at that, pins and everything. Oh, I was just so prepared for you all today. And here we are. Let's go this way. We'll keep them in the same direction. All right, so we did our sides, and then we put the top and bottom on. And you see how it's coming together, and then these are going to fit right here. And when that's finished, we just have one more round, and these will go right there. So it's not difficult. It just takes a little bit of time, but you know, you see it coming together, and it's just so exciting to see all these beautiful colors. Oh, they're fantastic. And it does go together quickly. And there, like I say, there are some ways you can do it. And one of the ways is you can pre-sew pairs, because you can see this is a pair, this is a pair, this is a pair, and this is a pair. And then each of these have pairs. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 pairs per block. So you can go ahead and pre-sew them. The only reason I didn't do that is I have a limited number of blocks that I'm using because of the color selection that I have. And I wanted to make sure I didn't repeat the same blocks in the same square. And that way I kind of spread everything out, so as it's laid out across the quilt, you'll see these multiples of them, but they'll be in different blocks. So there it is. It's very simple to put this together, but now is the fun part. We're going to consider our layout, but the first thing we need to do is put our white strips around the edges. So let me show you how that's going to work. So we have our color scheme chosen. That's number one. We have our color balance. We want to create balance within the block. And that means we have lights, we have darks, but we also have some mediums in here too. And with all that, the next thing is we want to create contrast and lay out our block in a way that is going to accentuate that. Now, knowing that I'm going to use the light blocks to the outside here, I want to make sure whatever is in this third round, so we have our center, well, technically this is round 1, and then this is round 2. So round 2 against round number 3, I want the most contrast because I want the darks and the lights to be next to each other so that we have a really good definition of the outline of the color blocks. And so you can see I kept the lighter ones to the center with the light white backgrounds, but those with bolder colors I kept to the outer ring. And even though there's light in there, there's enough color in these blocks that it holds up against this white background. Now let's take a look at one of the green blocks. Again, you can see we have darks and they're predominantly to this outer edge. And I really like how the golds work. And you could see them in the coral, the pinky coral color. But the golds in this block are much lighter because this color scheme is a lighter group of fabrics. This gets darker, and see how it brings the dark background where this, you don't really quite notice it as much. It brings out the pinks, so the flowers come forward here. But here we're really emphasizing the greens. So this first round again tends to be the lighter, and then I put the dark to the outside and see how it defines that outer edge. This is the fifth step, the fifth tip that I want to share with you, and that's getting creative. Do something unexpected. Do something a little different. And this is almost, it's actually my take on a modern technique that's referred to as negative space, and that's using a large area of one color. Now, that's really hard for me. As you can see, you don't see many blocks in here that are just one color, but I do include them on a small scale because they do add a lot. They emphasize the color of the block. But what I did instead of using negative space, using a single fabric, I used the blocks. And I used a bunch of different fabrics with white backgrounds. And they're all low volume, so they don't really stand out in contrast, but they sort of recede and they create that visual effect of the negative space. And when these come together, and I've got this laid out in the quilt, we are going to have these gorgeous blocks just floating in clouds. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm building my garden here. Can you tell? All right. So now it's time to put this together. And there's so many different ways I'm thinking. So let me lay a few out and I'll show you what I have in mind. Adding the low volume round is just the same as doing the color blocks, the focal fabrics. What I did is I grabbed my low volume, and I needed 14 for each of the blocks. And so with 16 blocks, that was just shy of like 230-ish. And so when I've got those all together, I realized I didn't have enough. So I'm scraping through every basket of fabric I could find, and this is all I had left. And so once I had enough pieces cut, then I started dividing them. I put them into two groups. One group, so I had 230, so I had about 115 or so. And I put one group of the lighter ones, the lighter prints for the coral, and then I did another one with darker prints to go around the green. The reason I did that is when these two blocks are going to be aligned in the quilt, because they'll be alternating in some pattern or another. I haven't quite decided. I want to be able to put these together any which way and know that the blocks from here will not duplicate over here. So by splitting those colors in two and separating so that I use only a certain block on here or a certain fabric over here and a certain fabric over here, they're not going to meet in the middle and go, oh no, I've got two side by side. Does it really matter? No. But you know, I like dealing with my quilts. I like thinking about those finite little things that matter because overall, I think it does make a big difference. Now, what do? We start putting them together. And there's a number of ways you can do it. You'll notice we have first our rows of 3. Now, I don't think I've mentioned this in this video, but in prior videos with my potato chip blocks, which I'll link that playlist up above because I have a playlist of all my potato chip block quilts. They're a lot of fun to go through. But this is a log cabin. It's called the Courthouse Steps log cabin block, and it's basically transformed into a broken courthouse steps. And what we do is we put it together from the center out. We have this would be our cabin in the regular log cabin, and then we put the 2 sides and then the top and bottom. Then we put the 2 sides and then the top and bottom. And that's what makes this one different than a regular log cabin is it's the courthouse steps. Is see how we create this step along the way as we go through. Now, with that being said, we need to make sure we keep that same pattern going on our outer ring, our outer row. So here's our center, and then we did the sides and the top. Our sides and the top. And you'll notice the sides are smaller than the top and bottom. So when we do the sides, it's going to be the same number of bricks as we did in our last row. So we did 3 here, so this will be 3 and this will be 3. And then the final row, or the final, I guess that's a row, I don't know what else to call it, is going to have 4 pieces in it. And that is to keep it extending across the entire block. But this is also where we get our step, our courthouse step. Piecing this goes together pretty quickly. Now, there's a couple ways you can do it. I had 14 for each block, 14 of my pieces for each block. And if you'll notice, there's 3 here and 4 there. So I have a pair, a pair, a pair, a pair, a pair, and a pair. So I actually have 6 pairs and then 2 single pieces. I'm not sure what to call these. Rectangles, that's the word. Because the quilt, oh, that's the other thing I want to tell you. When I first saw this pattern, it was in a book by Jo Parrott, and she calls this the Scrappy Rectangles. And I'll put that link down below too, because that book is pretty awesome. There's some wonderful scrappy quilts in there. But this is where I first saw that. And I want to give her credit because it's just, I have loved making this quilt. I think I've made it 12 times already. But so they're scrappy rectangles. That's what we're going to call them. Now, where was I? I wish I took notes so I could remember where I was. But there we are. Okay, 6 and 2. So we had 6 pairs and 2 extra. So what I'll do is just like I did on my board putting these together. I'll lay out my pairs, and then I'll take those 2 extras because they're going to go here and here. And they give me the opportunity if I need to slide one up or down just to make it fit aesthetically, then I can do that. So that worked out really well because I went through and I chain stitched 6 pairs at a time, and then I cut that aside, put the 2 singles with it, and okay, that's 1. And then I did that for all 16 of these. And that really saved time when I was putting them together. But you can also just do it like we did before and just, sort of do one at a time and go through. And I'll tell you, that is how I started on the first couple blocks, just to get the hang of how it goes together, how it fits, how it looks, and what is the most expeditious way. All right, so there we are. What else do we need to talk about? It's time to lay this quilt out. My gosh, we've talked so much about color and balance and value and just layouts and getting creative and all kinds of fun things. So now you have the information, the knowledge, and understanding about the color and how that works in our quilt, so you can do the very same in yours. Oh, I can't wait to see your quilts. So let me go ahead and figure out how we're going to lay this out, and I'll show you that. Here's something very special I want to share with you today. Pamela from the Sarnia Quilters Guild sent this to me, and it is a booklet of 33 different potato chip block quilt patterns. And she's given it to us for free, and she's given me permission to make it available to all my subscribers. So there will be a link down below in the description, and all you have to do is click on the link. It'll take you to the page where you can put in your information, and then you can download the PDF directly online. And it's something that you can save to your hard drive and have forever after. But there are some wonderful designs in here I think you'll really enjoy. So don't miss this one. These blocks look beautiful together. I love the alternating colors. I really like how well the distinction between the green and the pink stands out, and they are floating. Look at that. We've got these beautiful floating blocks in between each other. Oh, it's so pretty. I love it. Now, this is a pretty traditional layout going on the diagonal. Let's see what else we can come up with. This one I changed it up a bit, having the 4 colors in the center and the same colors in the corners, and then putting the other 2 on the outer edge. It's kind of a different layout, but it really puts the focus on pretty much the center fabrics. But now let's take a look at one more option. You know, I think this one is my favorite. I like the pink in the center because they're lighter, and the greens, which are darker, make a better outer border, and then the pinks in the corner just sets it off. I like this best. What do you think? Oh, so pretty. Any of them are beautiful. But I hope you enjoyed this. I haven't put it together yet because I'm not exactly certain this is where I'm going to end, but I think this could be the winner. So you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining me here. This has been great fun. Thanks so much for stopping by.